Hi folks and welcome back. Today I asked myself the question, would I recommend Disco Elysium? And the answer is a resounding yes. I absolutely loved my time in this game. It is a strange sort of a game though. It's about as close to a pen and paper RPG as you will get that works on a computer, with incredible depth in the story. You play the part of a 1970s styled alcoholic detective who's got himself caught up in a murder investigation and has lost his memory due to an immense bender he went on for 3 days, drugs and alcohol fueled, before the investigation starts. You start the game, arse up, face down, unconscious in a hotel room. It just throws you right in there. And from that position, you have to sort both yourself out and the murder investigation out as well. The story is deep, with lots of little plots and threads that lead off in different directions. And the game does not shy away from some pretty spicy subjects like religion and racism and politics. But it is all encased in a great big box of humour, which at times had me laughing out loud while streaming this. Oh, and if you want to watch my entire playthrough, by the way, it's kind of like watching someone read out an audiobook with a few surprises, then just click on the link down below. It takes you to my second channel. You can watch the entire adventure all the way through. So it's basically a puzzle and investigation game at its heart, but it also incorporates the elements of a role-playing game because you've got stats and skills. You're going to have to make certain die rolls and checks at points in the game. But if you fail, it doesn't mean it's over. It just usually means that the story takes on a very different arc. It's quite clever the way it all pulls together. Now let's talk about a few things that I liked about Disco Elysium, and right there at the top, one thing that really stood out was the humour. It is fantastic, and it goes from being slapstick all the way through the ranges to being tongue-in-cheek, dark and edgy, and at times almost inappropriate. Seriously, the developers behind this game are not scared of some pretty touchy subjects, but I loved the whole thing. And I found myself just laughing out loud occasionally. Like when I saw some old guys standing above a set of bulls near the beach, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and join in and play this. They even say, yeah, do you want to have a go? But because I didn't bother to talk to them and ask them about the rules of the game, my character just picked up one of the bulls and shot-putted the bloody thing out to sea. Which, kind of pissed off the people I was trying to get some information out of, but led me off on another little side story to try and sort it out, which was fun. And there's just loads of crazy things in this. And you know what? For all the story, overall, there is some dark bits in the story, but the humour lightens it up quite well, and it is just really well done. The writing in the game is incredible. And you will need to pay attention to a lot of the writing in the game. The detail in the investigation, just wow. Every little thing is relevant to something. And when you're reading the conversations, when you're looking at things, when you're noticing how people have reacted, you've got to take note. You've got to be Columbo or Poirot or insert detective of choice here, Sherlock Holmes, because everything feels like it's relevant and everything is involved. If not in the main murder investigation, in some little side investigation, some subplot, something that will give you some benefit if you can solve it. And it makes you think twice about everything. It makes you question everything twice. It's really cleverly done. And because there's so many little bits of detail and so many little subplots, if you like, they're not all unrelated to the main plot. They're not all like random side quests. But there's so many of them that will lead you off on different threads of the investigation. You'll find that you will get several different playthroughs out of this game. And it all depends on your skills and stats that you pick. This is quite a clever system in that your own skills will almost talk to you. As you're looking over a body, for example, your instinct might suggest something to you, or your visual calculus will tell you how many people walk through the yard. And if you haven't got points in those particular stats, well, you won't get those messages. But the stats that you have put points into will give you different messages. You might notice something else that you didn't notice before, just based on the skills that you've picked. It's really clever stuff. And while the main story might not change that much, your journey from start to finish of it will be very different. As an example, after I finished the game once, I loaded it back up, and within the first hour of me playing the second playthrough, I'd found a completely different cutscene at part of the investigation that I had not missed in the first playthrough, just not been able to come across because I had different skills. There's that much built in there. It's quite varied, and I don't suppose that any two players' adventures through the game would be the same. Now, speaking about the stats and skill system, you can completely customize your character in exactly the way you want to play the game. You want to be shy and retiring, but extremely clever and perceptive? Well, you can play that detective. You want to be as thick as a bag of mice and just a big beefcake knocking in doors and heads? You can play that detective. They will both solve the murder and clean up the investigation, but their adventures, their journeys from start to finish will be completely different. Also, you can make some stats too powerful and they kind of take over in things, so it's a little bit about balancing things out. And on top of the skill system, there's also a thought system to let you further customize the character as you develop, based on maybe theories that you've discussed with other characters in the game. You can instill them as a thought and develop it further. For example, are you actually a retired rock star? Or in this case, a disco star. And if you decide that yes, you are, well, you can develop that thought. And as that thought develops, your stats will change. And at the end of it, it will give you some permanent bonus and or penalty. You won't know what it is till you've worked it through, but it will change the way your character looks at the world and reacts in the world throughout the game. And, well, if you don't like these, you can change them in and out. But there's so many different thoughts. On my first playthrough, I didn't even see half the list that is available there. So there's lots to discover, and it's a really nice idea with an element of surprise to it that doesn't always work out as you expect. Now, this game is brutally outrageous. It's not the sort of thing you want to play in front of your granny or your 5-year-old kids. That being said, it doesn't shy away from talking about some pretty strong and touchy subjects: religion, politics, all sorts of things, drugs, alcoholism, lots of things that's stuffed in here. It makes it feel really dark and gritty and real as well. It doesn't try to make any one political point, because there are lots of political points it can make depending on how you choose to play the character, or none at all if you want to play like that. So it's got all the options in there. It all works together. It's all written in very well. And of course, the way you play these characters and some of these decisions you make will, of course, determine who else in the game, the NPCs, will respond to you, how they react with you, for the better or worse. And when you put all this stuff together, the different skills, the different stats, the different thoughts that your character can develop, the different political theories that they can pursue if you should wish to, all that stuff, and then of course the success or failures of your dice rolls when you're doing various skill checks on things. The end result is that there are so many possible details and threads and leads and things to pick up on or branch out on that, well, you'll have no two playthroughs the same, I can guarantee you that. And also, it makes you question everything you see twice. Are all these little details that are leading you towards one conclusion, are they just red herrings? Have they been placed purposely there to try and fool you? You know what? There's that much stuff in the game like that. It makes you question every little thing by the end of the game. And your head can be spinning with different theories all the way up to the final conclusion. Which leads me on to one or two things that I didn't like quite so much about the game. And I'm going to talk about the ending, but don't worry, I won't give away any spoilers. I didn't think the ending was as strong as it could be. I felt it was a little weak after the huge depth of the investigation that sucked up probably about 45 to 50 hours of my time, although I was reading it out for the stream and for YouTube, so that definitely slowed me down. To me, the ending just didn't quite fit in with the direction that the investigation was going. But having said that, it's made me realise that the game isn't quite all about the ending. It's about the huge, varied journey that you will experience on your way there. And another thing that I didn't quite like, well, this could go either way. There is a huge amount of reading. There's very little voice acting in the game. What there is usually quite amusing, but there's so much reading. I actually found this to be a chore to read out on stream. It'd be different for people just playing it themselves at home. But yeah, after like a 4-hour streaming session, I had a real bad croaky voice. There's that much. It's like reading a book out constantly. Of course, just playing by yourself, you don't have to read out loud. But there is a lot of text to go through. Some of it you feel might be unnecessary and is just like background or lore text, but then at the same time, this investigation goes so far and so deep, you never know. You never know. So you feel compelled to read every damn thing you can and follow every possible lead. But the downside of all this is that sometimes you find yourself just wanting to skip through some conversations which sound boring, and there's a risk there that you will miss some important detail for later on. But there is a lot of text, and I understand that they just probably didn't have the budget to do all this as voiceover because there's so much. But bearing that in mind, if you don't like a lot of reading, then that's going to be a bit of a downer for you. And finally, and this one can go both ways really, there's a lot of things that are just down to RNG, i.e. dice rolls on skill checks. You can line everything up perfectly. You can go all the way through picking the right choices and conversations. You can do all the right things to investigate and inspect the crime scene. But when it comes to the crunch, when you have to do something important, no matter what you've done, how skillfully you've set it up, it comes down to a dice roll whether you are successful or not. And that can be frustrating. I've seen instances where I've had like an 87% chance of success on something and it's failed, to my real consternation. But at the same time, I've seen myself with like 10% chance and passed. So it's highs and lows, but if you can't deal with a little bit of randomness in your gameplay, then it's probably going to annoy you a little bit. I will say, though, that most die rolls, if you fail them, it doesn't mean that you're just, you failed the game or you can't pass any further. It usually just means you have to take a different route through the investigation, or your story's going to take a different turning. It's not all necessarily bad stuff, failing rolls, but it is a little bit random, and sometimes you feel tempted just to load in the last save and try that again until you get a successful roll on it. So overall, yes, I definitely recommend Disco Elysium. It's a great detective game, and I would love to see more detective games in this style. Not necessarily the same setting or the same characters, although they are all very likable, but I would love to see this system put in more detective games because I like the investigation. I like how deep and thorough they are with everything, and I want to see more of it. So please, let's have some more like this. A definite 8 out of 10 for me. It's not going to be to everyone's taste, but it's a really good game, and I do recommend it. If you'd like to see my fairly unique adventure through it, then click on the link below, takes you to my second channel. Or if you'd like to see a more in-depth review, then I've also linked ACG's Disco Elysium review as well. Do go and check it out. All right, thanks folks, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.